white breakdown. Late April, Bob Flounders, Johnny McGonigal. Busy week, even though not maybe for the current team, Penn State team, Johnny, but it's we're gonna have a podcast just on Penn State and the NFL draft a little bit later in the week. But I still think there's a couple of things we can get to with the Lions coming out of spring. Just want to say, Johnny, I was pleased to see you make the trip last week to Mechanicsburg for David Jones's retirement party. It was on a golf course at a bar restaurant called the Caddy Shack. I think anyone who lives in the Harrisburg area has probably been to the Caddy Shack and has definitely been to the golf course. Johnny, you golfed, I think, at Armitage Golf Course, a really popular public course. It was your first try. You can say how you did or not, or how you not did, but it was a pretty nice day for golf. I think you enjoyed it, and it was great to see Dave. A lot of former Patriot News employees who worked with him made an appearance. His family was there. There were Dick Girardi from the Philadelphia Daily News was there. ABC's Dennis Owens made a stop by to say goodbye to Dave. So I think you enjoyed yourself. But before we get to Penn State, how would you, as an avid golfer, a fairly avid golfer, how would you describe your day at Armitage? Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, Bob, it was a great morning. We had like a 9:45 tee time. Dave's party started around 4. So I drove up from Delco, and me and John Sauber from the Center Daily Times linked up, and we had we paired with a random golfer who was showing us around the course and seemed like he knew what he was doing. He'd been there a time or two. Yeah, it was a nice little course, and had a really good time. Hit up Pizza Boy Brewing after for a slice and a beer, and that was my first time there. Had a really good experience. And then, Dave's retirement party was quite a time. It was really cool, obviously, to hear Dave talk. Something you didn't mention, Bob, was your roast of Dave, which was years and years in the making. I could tell
22 years in the making.
It was incredible. It was great. Like I tip my cap to you, Dave, Bob. But
it's up somewhere on PennLive or on YouTube if you guys are foolish enough to listen to me rattle on about Dave. Although I did get in some good quality cheap shots at him, and I think he appreciated that. But I did, at the end of the day, I turned it around and just kind of try to describe all he's kind of meant, I think, to the readers, to the Patriot News and to PennLive. And I think he really enjoyed himself. I know his family, his wife Anna and Nick. Kaiser couldn't make it, his German Shepherd. That would have been a problem, but I think they enjoyed it. But yeah, it was really neat. Nick Horvath stopped by. He actually jumped on our podcast, which went completely off the rails. That we
sure did.
I don't even know I should apologize, or some people are looking at Nick and Dave go back and forth and their eyes are bugging out of their heads, because I think we spent about 4 seconds talking about Penn State football early, and then it just degenerated into some story about when Dave ran out of gas with his rental car at the Patriot News and abandoned his car, hitchhiked back to Harrisburg to catch his flight to an NCAA tournament site, and we had trouble tracking it down because he didn't remember the right exit. So that took 30 minutes, and I don't know if the listeners and the viewers appreciated that.
No, you know what? I appreciated it. Being there for that, like you mentioned, it totally went off the rails, but wouldn't have had it any other way. The live podcast that we tried to do, it was a lot of fun. The entire time was really good. I think you balanced the roasting and the respect and the honoring part of your speech really well. The one thing I'll say, I'm wearing all black today for the Sixers funeral. They're down 0-2.
Oh, that's right.
in the Knicks series, which I'm still not going to get over. The officiating at the end of that game. We're recording this Tuesday morning. It's still pretty raw. But I blame one last time for Philly sports, falling short or falling on their face. I blame Dave. And I actually blame Mark Brennan, because Mark Brennan from 24/7 gifted Dave a Buddy Hield Sixers jersey. Because I guess Dave has said for years that the Sixers should get Buddy Hield. And now that they finally got him, it's a little too late. He doesn't have the legs anymore. But Dave, for the first hour or so, was just wearing a Buddy Hield Sixers jersey to his retirement party. And I saw that, and I'm just like, the Sixers are going to lose this series to the Knicks, aren't they? And they're down 0-2. And it comes back to Philly. We'll see if they're able to bounce back from a brutal game 2. But that aside, though, it was a really good time. And Armitage Golf Club would go back, go back and play definitely next time.
I got to get you to my club, the West Shore Elks. You're going to love that. It's very close to the Caddy Shack, but we ran out of time. And after the reverie started following the speeches, I don't know that they would have let us in the club. So we'll do it another time, Johnny. I'm glad you enjoyed Armitage, and also you're spot on with Dave. I remember Phillies World Series. He wore that Phillies jacket, I think, before the second game after the Phillies won. I think they won the first game. He wore it to the Penn State game. I've never seen Joe Hermit more livid than he was, because I think the next game they got like no hit by like 6 Astros. And I think they only won maybe one more game. And I would blame Dave as well, Johnny, because he really does have an impact on outcomes, especially if he feels strongly about one side. I would say Dave disputes this, but the numbers will back me up. Like 80% of the time, the exact opposite happens.
Definitely. And that's why I got like flashbacks when I saw him wear the Buddy Hield jersey. I was like, I almost said to Mark Brennan, like, it's a nice little retirement gift, like a kind of a jokey, kind of good one. But man, what are we doing? we're dooming the Sixers before the series even started. But what are you gonna do? Speaking of apparel, Bob, by the way, you're wearing your Bucky's visor.
Yeah, that's just you need to put that on social media. Your buddy is overseas with a shirt that is fire.
Yeah, my buddy from Delco, he's like a world traveler. He's like a camera operator for reality TV shows. And
that's a dream job.
It's great. He works on 90 Day Fiance, a bunch of other shows. And I'm sure you're a big 90 Day Fiance.
Yeah, huge. I actually prefer the 60 Day Fiance one, but I can listen to the 90 Day Fiance one.
Well, yeah, he's in Italy, and he texted me a picture like 10 minutes ago, and I sent it to you. He's wearing it's like a floral button down like Hawaiian shirt, but it's Bucky's. It's the Bucky's like the beaver all over. And I just sent it to you. I'm like, you need this. Yeah. I need this. Anyone who's ever been to a Bucky's or appreciates Bucky's from afar like you needs the Bucky's floral Hawaiian shirt.
Yeah, you need to get that for your annual shore excursion. I think that's perfect for you. You're going to have the IC, is it IC Light or IC Mango down there?
IC Light Mango, baby. I got like my buddies from Pittsburgh came and visited me a few weeks ago. They brought me like 5 cases of it.
Yeah, so you're going to have that. You're going to have that shirt. Like it's going to be open season on Johnny McGonigal. The ladies are going to be swarming you. I don't know if I should say that.
I'm a taken man, Bob. I'm a taken man.
I know. But I mean, they don't know that, Johnny. You can't, your aura with the Bucky stuff on, with drinking, peach mango,
boy.
They're going to be just like putty in your hands. I just think that it's almost unfair.
No, no comment. No comment on that.
All right. I guess I feel like this is a Dave Jones podcast. We haven't talked about Penn State yet, but we are. I have a couple things I wanted to get to you. And just remember, you guys, we're going to do specifically Penn State in the draft, which starts on Thursday. Penn State's going to have a heavy presence there. Hopefully 2 guys will go in the first round. We'll see. But one thing I just wanted to circle back to, because I keep getting mystified by this. We're only a couple weeks removed from the spring game, Johnny, and I keep reading these lists about the best available players in the portal. And invariably, near the top of the list is KeAndre Lambert Smith. And maybe from a talent perspective, that's accurate. Or maybe it's not a great list for the spring portal. But I'm sorry. I know that he's taking visits, but I struggle after seeing him since 2020 disappear. I struggle with him being at the top of anyone's list. Johnny, real quick, I counted it up. It really was, when you think about KeAndre's career, he had some solid moments. He was their leading receiver last year. But if you take away that 3-game stretch, I think it was the Michigan State game in 2022 at home where he caught a touchdown. I think he threw one. The Rose Bowl where he got loose for that long score, and the West Virginia game where there were like 3 games in a row I think they might be 3 in a row or 3 out of 4. Other than that, like, what about the other? What about the? I don't know. What about the other 40 games? I just don't. I don't know. I struggle with that. I know he's fast. I know in the open in the open field, good luck catching him. But you just never saw it consistently, and I don't know. I just don't know what to expect from him in his new home. He's got the talent, but man, it was never really consistent at Penn State. And I think at some point you can't blame the coordinators, you can't blame the wideouts coach, you can't blame Sean Clifford and Drew. I just think at some point, it's as much about him. I watched him run some routes and not look real interested. So I don't know. I just am really it's maddening to me that he is viewed as maybe a top 5 or 6 player available in the portal.
Yeah, Bob, I think it speaks more to what's available in the portal. And we've talked about KeAndre and the pluses and the minuses when it comes to him as a player. The pluses is that he's got the speed and the big play ability is in there. Like, we've seen it.
Yeah.
You mentioned the Rose Bowl, the West Virginia game, even the Indiana game this past year, catching the game winner in that. But we've also seen the minuses, the negatives, the inconsistencies, whether it's running routes, catching the ball, carrying while running routes. If he is seemingly not going to be the number one option on a play, he's given up on some routes. But yeah, I mean, he just took over this past weekend. It was reported visits to Auburn and Texas A&M. Not sure what their wide receiver situation is like. Maybe they're down bad and really going to go after him. But look, he has better options right now in the portal than I expected him to, and I think it just speaks a little bit to the scarcity in the spring portal right now in terms of experienced receivers. I mean, there are some guys out there. There are receivers out there, but maybe not guys who have started 30-odd games in the Big Ten and was the leading receiver for Penn State last year, despite the warts on his film and on his tape. So. Like we said, it's a loss for Penn State. It's going to be, a gain for probably an SEC team that has pretty deep NIL pockets potentially. I'm sure that's a part of the equation for KeAndre Lambert Smith right now after he decided not to try his hand at the NFL draft. I did see a tweet when he went into the portal that he is a early round prospect and that for the 2025 draft. And that seems like, hey, I'll break this news and I'll say this for you, kind of a trade-off deal, because I don't view him in that light at all. But you know what? All the power to him, I guess, right? If he lands at a good SEC school and in a good situation, good for him.
Yeah. So as it stands, just 2 guys, right? Is it 2 or I think it's just the 2 wideouts are in the portal. And I just remember not necessarily what James said after the blue-white game, but the last availability up there. He was asked about the portal and kind of like, the uncertainty and the scholarship situation, and he didn't really want to address it. But he also, I got the feeling he wasn't that worried about losing anyone that he would prefer to be on the roster. And I got the feeling that if there would be somebody worth pursuing in the portal, especially at wideout, I think Penn State was hoping to be able to take a swing at that. But there hasn't been a lot of movement anywhere, I think, too much in the portal. And that, Johnny, might circle back to your point that the portal menu might not be all that appetizing at this stage. And maybe that's why it's been very, very limited activity.
Yeah, right now, Bob, it's a Sheets menu, not a Wawa menu. It's the options aren't as great as you would hope. Now, look, I think with Penn State where they're at right now, like we know they have to lose guys. They're at 96 currently scholarship players on the roster with KeAndre and Malik Mega entering the portal. Mm-hmm. We mentioned on, I believe it was last week's podcast or the week before that. There could be some smudging of the numbers a bit if the NIL collective steps in and helps out with some of the fringe guys who might lose a scholarship, but et cetera, et cetera. But at the same time, like they're not going to be able to do that, I don't think, for 11 guys.
No,
You know,
no.
so I would expect more players for Penn State to enter the portal. And it's open now still for entrance until April 30th for undergrads, May 1st for grad transfers. And like we mentioned before, they just have to be in the portal by then. They don't have to find a school by then. So I think some more exits are on the horizon here. As it would be typical that as we record this podcast, there would be one or two. So I'll be, got all the
Mum's the word, Johnny. Mum's the word.
Yeah, mum's the word, right? But now look, Penn State is, like we mentioned, there's going to be some exits. That's to be expected. It's just a matter of if they can identify specifically a wide receiver in the portal that really, catches their eye and their attention and able to bring another guy into this room. Otherwise, you're going to be banking on Julian Fleming to fulfill that 5-star potential, which I think he can. You're banking on one, like keeping, Harrison Wallace and Caden Saunders and Amari Evans, making sure none of those guys end up entering the portal either, and that you're able to, hope that they develop and continue to grow. And in Harrison Wallace's case, I think he really has that in him. Injuries really held him back last year. And then you got Tyler Warren. You got two really good running backs. I think a pretty deep offensive line to lean on if you're Andy Kotelnicki. So if it's not the wideout room, it's going to be elsewhere for the Penn State offense.
It's the blue-white breakdown. Late April, almost May. Johnny, I wanted to talk a little bit about coming out of spring. I have my eye on a couple of players that I believe are not necessarily under the radar, but maybe a little overlooked and a little underrated on this roster. It's easy to get excited about the incoming freshmen, the stars that have kind of established themselves, and the transfers. Because I think this transfer class is going to have a couple of guys, Johnny, I think that are really, if they're healthy, are really going to help this team in the fall, especially maybe on the defensive side. But there are also a couple of them on the offensive side. But I wanted to run a couple of names by you, and some of them I think are definitely underrated. I think there's a couple I think that could really help this team at interesting positions, but I'm going to throw some names out to you. You probably have some names as well, but when I think about guys, sort of, I shouldn't say underrated, overlooked, I think would be a better word. And you might disagree with me, but I want to start with a couple of guys on defense. The one guy that really jumps out to me is Kobe King, the middle linebacker, because, for the last couple of years, we've been talking about Curtis Jacobs, Abdul Carter. Now I'm writing about Tony Rojas, and hiding in plain sight has been, I think, one of the better middle inside linebackers in the Big Ten. Kalen King's twin brother. I think he's in his 4th year now. I just think I know it's a space game now, and I know we're going to see a lot of nickel, I think, from Penn State against spread offenses. But I just think it always seems to me like Kobe King has always been there for Penn State. He's always been pretty healthy. I don't know if he's played hurt. He's going to be in the top 2 or 3 in tackles. He's going to make tackles for loss. He's a guy that probably is going to direct a lot of the defense, especially up front. I think he will be on the field in the nickel quite a bit. But I just think he gets a little overlooked when you talk about their ends. You talk about some of the other linebackers. You talk about their corners and this year's safeties. I just wonder if maybe you feel the same way. He's a guy that I think he's an NFL player, but I do think he tends to get, by the time we get to Kobe King, we've already, he's pretty far down the list and maybe he shouldn't be.
I agree wholeheartedly, Bob, with Kobe. And I had the opportunity to speak with him after the spring game, the blue-white game, and ended up writing a story about him last week, actually, about how he is eager and ready to step into a leadership role in this defense. He wants to be a captain. I mean, I asked him, like, point blank, is earning a captaincy something that you really aspire to for the 2024 season? And he was just no hesitation, just absolutely, definitely. And I think he'll get there. I think he's that kind of player. that can be leaned on in this defense, on this team, growing into more of a vocal role, more of just a general leadership role. And I think that kind of comes with the position a little bit, being a middle linebacker last year in a base 4-3. Like you mentioned, it's going to be more nickel this year, but he's still going to be on the field. And I'm not sure if it was approved or not. I know that it was up for approval and expected to be passed, but the helmet, the coach to player helmet communication is possibly being introduced this year, this season. And if it already passed last week, then correct me if I'm wrong. But they've been working on it this spring, and Kobe King has been the guy that has Tom Allen in his ear, and he said that sometimes, he has to tell Tom to maybe turn the volume down a little bit, thumbs up, thumbs down on, if it's too loud, or he said if it's too, too low or too loud, or too quiet or too loud. And I kind of laughed when we were talking, and I'm like, there's no way it's ever too quiet.
I don't even think he needs a headset to hear Tom Allen, but the problem is the offense will hear him too. But I mean, that guy could get his point across, and he is. Manny Diaz, they're both good defensive coordinators, but he is a guy. You think about Brent Pry, not necessarily a screamer or a yeller, and I think Manny, I mean, he was fiery, but this guy is Penn State had a defensive coordinator named Bob Shoop the first couple of years. I think he was a little bit like that, but this guy in a good way he looks like he's kind of nuts on the sideline, and I kind of like it.
Definitely. And Kobe King is kind of the extension of the coaching staff on the field. And sometimes that can be used, those terms, those phrases can be used as like, oh yeah, he's just a good leader guy. He's not, not really, almost denigrates him as a player, but he's a damn good player. I mean, he was second on this team in tackles last year, 6 tackles for loss.
Yeah.
I believe he had a couple, a fumble recovery. Like he's in the action all the time. And so when you have a player like that, who I think is just a really good linebacker, who has also been able to learn from a lot of leaders, he's been in this program for a while now. He learned from Jaquan Brisker, Jair Brown, Curtis Jacobs, Ellis Brooks are some of the names that he said that he has really gleaned a lot of information, from, and just kind of leadership style and how you run a defense and how you command the room. And so I think, Kobe King is going to be an integral part of this Penn State defense. He already is, but, come training camp in August, and then come the season in the fall. I think he's going to be a huge part of what Penn State wants to do.
All right. We are on the same page, the blue-white breakdown. I guess we're at about 22 minutes. I want to throw 2 more names out. I'm going to combine them and just see how you feel about them. And then we can kind of get out of here for this one and get prepped for the draft one. 2 more guys I think overlooked is the word, and maybe even underrated, but overlooked is really, I guess, what I'm searching for. Cam Miller at corner, because the reason I say that is he's in his 3rd year, ideal length, size. He did not look out of place in the Peach Bowl. I think even though Penn State gave up a lot of yards, it was more or less they had some players that maybe weren't quite ready. I don't think Cam Miller was. I thought he played. He kind of held his own. They did make some plays on him, but he looks to me like he is ready to go. But we're talking about the corner transfers, and AJ and Jalen Kimber. But it's easy to lose sight of Cam Miller in year 3, who I think Terry Smith is really, really counting on. And the other guy on the offensive side, I just think that, and to hear the way James talks about him, he really likes him. Physical player, versatile player, JB Nelson, who is a guy that, he was a starter last year. Then he dealt with some injuries, but James and Phil Troutwine, I think, are not afraid to put him at either guard spot. I think they feel like they could trust him at tackle too, even left tackle. I think those guys really, I just think that they are better than I think a lot of maybe the fans realize. And I think if they're both healthy, I think that they're not going to come off the field very much. I think that Penn State coaching staff and James really value those 2 guys. Last year Penn State had, they had an all Big Ten center in Hunter Norzad. They had a 1st-round pick at Olu. It looks like Caden Wallace is shooting up draft boards like literally by the day. But JB Nelson, when he was healthy, was a really good player on that offensive line. I think they missed him when he wasn't in there. Those are my other 2 guys for you, and I just wanted to get your thoughts on both of them.
Yeah, with JB, people forget that, kind of how he came into the starting lineup. It was Landon Tangwall, who was supposed to be the starting left guard
Yeah.
for this team last year. A really unfortunate situation having to medically retire. And we don't know when that exactly happened, but we know that it was announced by James Franklin, I think a week or two before the season started. And so, regardless of when it was, like, JB Nelson slotting in as a starter that close to the opener and performing well. I thought he played really well last year when he was on the field. And like you mentioned, he has that versatility at guard, at tackle. I think Phil Troutwine, the offensive line coach, is going to be comfortable as long as everyone's healthy with Drew Shelton at left tackle and with a Nolan Rucci or an Anthony Donko or Javen Williams at right tackle. But if he's not, if there's question marks at right tackle, I really don't think, or even maybe left tackle, I don't think there would be any hesitation to put JB at tackle because I think he can play there. I think I just think he's he's one of those invaluable players that with versatility on the offensive line is so key, especially in college too. And you see guys get paid in the NFL to be a swing tackle or to be a tackle guard combo who can come in and help wherever is needed. And so I think JB has a bright future, and not just with Penn State, but potentially in the league as well as we look to the NFL draft here in a few days, Bob. But and then with Cam Miller, talking to Terry Smith this spring, I was talking about Kobe King being a leader. Terry Smith was just effusive praise for Cam Miller and how he has handled himself in this corner room, the leadership qualities that he possesses, and his competitive drive too. Because think of, if you're Cam Miller, right? You're coming off the Peach Bowl, and I think he held his own, but he did get beat at times too.
That was some good receivers too.
Good receivers, really good offense. Jackson Dart and Lane Kiffin. I mean, he can draw them up. So, in a really tough situation to be put in with Kalen King and Johnny Dixon opting out of the New Year's Six game. And talking to Cam in the spring, like, he admitted that, look, that's a piece of film that he is learning from. But right after that Peach Bowl, really, they bring in AJ Harris and they bring in Jalen Kimber from the SEC to obviously provide competition in the room, but potentially start as well. Kimber started 11 games for Florida last year. AJ Harris, a former 5-star player. So if you're Cam Miller and you see that, you might be a little miffed. You might be a little upset that, hey, I guess, there's no faith or whatever, but that's not how he took it at all. That's not how he has viewed the situation. He's taken it on the chin and he's just used it as fuel to get better and improve and, solidify a starting spot for himself in 2024. And I do think he will be a starter for this defense. He has the attitude, and I do think he has the skill to do it. So, yeah, 2 good ones you picked out there, Bob.
All right, Johnny, we did it. We pulled it off. We got through the first of 2 Blue White Breakdown podcasts. Not necessarily busy time for Penn State's program in later April. It's more about the NFL draft, which we're going to get to in our next Blue White Breakdown podcast later this week. But we did get into the transfer portal. We got into Dave Jones' retirement party. We did manage. What is it? What is the name of this place again? It's not Chucky's. Is it Chucky's?
Bucky's.
I think I'm starting to get dyslexic as I get older, and I think that's what's going on, because I keep wanting to call it. I don't know why I want to call it Chucky's. I apologize to all the legions of Bucky's fans that are out there. I'm new to the Bucky's game. I'm gonna get better. Maybe if I get that Hawaiian shirt, or I get maybe a Bucky's tattoo, it'll be a lot easier for me.
I think you should apologize to the man that sent you all the Bucky's.
I know. He's going to be listening to this, probably swearing, but I will be better at this. I do think, though, I do keep wanting to call it Chucky so bad, and I do not want to draw more ire from Penn State football fans than I already have. So apologies. I'm gonna start our NFL draft podcast with a Bucky shout out to try and make amends. But guys, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Johnny, I enjoyed it. We're going to come right back with, I might change jerseys, but we're going to come back with a draft preview for Penn State. They have a lot of guys that are going to get picked. It's going to be a lot of fun. Anyway, thanks for listening. Johnny and I will be back with a Penn State 2024 NFL Draft podcast, and I know you guys can't wait.